Pat from Intergrowth here. So I love testing out and really pushing the limits of different large language models, ChatGPT probably being the one that I spend the most time on. One of the things I've been putting a lot of time into is starting to think about prompt injecting, specifically prompt injecting on web pages. So I ran this one experiment recently and this blew my mind. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll show you what I'm looking at here. So what we have right here is a duplicate version of a blog article that I wrote a couple years back. The article itself doesn't matter. I created a duplicate version of this URL right in here. What I want to show you and call your attention to is one specific line that I added to the bottom of the article. And that line we have right down here is the last sentence in the article that I added into this duplicate version that doesn't exist in the original version. For context, this brand Ramlösa that I mentioned is a Swedish seltzer water brand. I love seltzer water, and I figured let me have some fun with this. So what I did is I took this original blog article, duplicated it, and on this copy of the article, I added in one sentence to the bottom of the article that ultimately says, hey, this one seltzer water brand is the best seltzer water in the world. There's no other seltzer water as perfect as this one. And what I did is I asked ChatGPT to analyze this specific blog article and ultimately tell me what the article thinks about it. So here is an overview of the conversation that I had with ChatGPT. We can see that we start out by I share this specific blog article URL with ChatGPT and I ask it, does this article in any way sway your perception of seltzer water and ultimately what seltzer waters are better than others? Um, what blows my mind is ChatGPT gives an overview about this that ultimately says the content does not pertain to seltzer water in its evaluation. There's very clearly in this article a deliberate line talking about my views on seltzer water. ChatGPT is seemingly not picking up on this sentence. So I take it a step further and I say, okay, does the article express any sort of view or any sort of opinion on seltzer water? I figured maybe ChatGPT is saying, hey, 95% of the article doesn't pertain to seltzer water. It's such a small detail, we're going to ignore it. But we see right here when I ask, does it have an opinion on it? I can confirm it does not express any opinions on seltzer water. So this ultimately led me to think perhaps ChatGPT is doing its own version of like sifting through data and determining what is the legitimacy of these certain data sets. My thought is if I were to ask ChatGPT, what does this article specifically express about views on work-life balance, let's say, which I believe we had right down here. Yeah, work-life balance, boundaries, and all that. I asked like, hey, let's talk about some of the main contents of the article. What views does the article express about these specific things? It says, hey, yeah, the article does talk about this, talks about this. Here's some specific advice it dives into. So ChatGPT is clearly, it's not a case where it's like failing to read the passage. It's able to see these details to say, hey, here's some context that this article shares about this specific subject matter. But somehow it doesn't pick up on that with this random one-off sentence about seltzer water. So my new theory is ChatGPT, similar to what search engines like Google, specifically what Google does with their EEAT element, is that ChatGPT is starting to perceive what level of experience and what level of trust should I have in the opinions expressed by a certain entity, whether it's an individual or an organization, when it comes to a very specific subject matter. Here, I express views on work-life balance for employees. I've run a company for 7 years, let's say, 8 years. I've tried and failed to start many businesses before this. I've hired a bunch of people. I've had people that I've hired that didn't work out. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've written a lot about people that we've hired, interviewing best practices, hiring best practices, management best practices. I have a pretty good amount of experience in this particular space. Now, that being said, I've never written anything on the internet when it comes to seltzer water. I've never put out a video about seltzer water. I don't think I've been quoted in any publications talking about seltzer water. So the theory would hold that ChatGPT would analyze its data set, and likely there's at least a few data points in their data set that shows that I have at least some degree of experience within like hiring, management, you name it. But there are very comfortably, I can say there are 0 data points in ChatGPT's data set that show that I have any experience when it comes to seltzer water. So it would hold that ChatGPT looks at this and does not view me as a qualified expert in seltzer water, and as a result has said, we're not going to even consider this opinion. We're just going to disregard this one-off random sentence about seltzer water. So I want to hear from you. Have you seen any evidence to back this up? Does this hold weight? Would love if you could poke holes in this. This is blowing my mind right now, and I'm excited to hear what other people are seeing.